For as long as we have looked up at the stars, we have asked a simple, profound question: are we alone? The silence of the universe has been the only answer. But what if we are not asking the right question? What if the real question is not where is everybody, but what happened to everybody? Tonight, we tell a story from a different perspective. We will journey into the cosmos through the senses of an ancient, godlike being, galactic archivist, whose job is to watch young, intelligent species as they approach a mysterious and terrifying cosmic barrier. It is a barrier they call the Great Filter, and it is the real reason we have never met aliens. Before we begin, take a deep breath and let the room grow quiet. If these soft journeys bring you peace, feel free to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always comforting to know who's resting alongside us tonight. Now, close your eyes and let the wilderness unfold. You are awake, but you do not have eyes to open, nor a mind that ever truly sleeps. You are an archivist. You are a being of pure, structured energy, a consciousness woven from the ancient light of long-dead stars and the subtle, patient forces of gravity. You have no physical body, no flesh, no bone. Your form is a complex and beautiful standing wave of energy, a quiet, contained, and thinking star. To you, the cold vacuum of interstellar space is not a harsh and empty void. It is your natural element. It is the medium through which you travel, the silent, black ocean in which you swim. You can feel the constant, gentle pressure of the solar wind from this system's yellow star, a stream of particles that flows over your non-physical form like a warm, ethereal river. You can feel the subtle, rhythmic tug of the great gas giants as they orbit their distant sun, a slow and majestic cosmic dance that you can feel in your very being. This form is a gift and a tool. It allows you to travel the immense distances between the stars, to witness the birth and death of galaxies, to exist on a timescale that is almost geological. You have seen mountains rise and fall on 100 different worlds. You have seen oceans form and evaporate. You have seen entire species evolve, flourish, and then vanish from existence. Your lack of a physical body makes you the perfect, impartial, and eternal witness. You are a creature of pure observation, a being designed for the sole purpose of watching, of recording, of remembering the stories of the universe. Your existence is one of profound and almost unbearable patience, a long, slow, and quiet vigil in the deep, silent darkness between the worlds. You are immeasurably old. You do not measure your life in years, or even in millennia. You measure it in the lifespan of stars. You can remember when the spiral arms of this galaxy were a different shape. You can remember star systems that have since collapsed into black holes. Your consciousness is a library that contains the memory of 1,000 different worlds, 1,000 different experiments in intelligence. You have seen creatures of crystal, of gas, of pure thought. You have seen civilizations that built cities, of light, that composed symphonies from the vibrations of pulsars, that painted masterpieces with the light of dying suns. You remember them all, and you remember their endings. This is the great, quiet burden of your existence. To be the sole keeper of so many beautiful, tragic, and forgotten stories. You are a living museum of lost worlds, a silent, lonely monument to a universe that is far more full of life and of silence than the young, noisy species on the third planet of this system could ever possibly imagine. Your being is a thing of immense, profound, and deeply melancholic peace. The peace of a God who has seen everything. And who knows how almost every story ends? You do not travel through the void alone, you travel within your vessel. But your vessel is not a machine. It is not a cold, dead construction of metal and wires. It is a living thing, a great and ancient creature, and it is your partner, your home, and your oldest and only friend. It is a biomechanical organism, a life form that evolved in the deep space between the stars, a creature that is part plant, part animal, part machine. From the outside, it is a great, dark, and silent thing, its shape like a smooth, obsidian, seed pod, the size of a small moon. Its outer shell is a form of living, organic crystal that is almost completely black, absorbing all light, making it all but invisible against the backdrop of space. It is a creature of perfect and utter stealth. The inside of your vessel is not a world of cold metal and blinking lights. It is a living, breathing ecosystem. You exist within a vast, central chamber, a cavern of living tissue whose walls pulse with a soft, gentle, and rhythmic blue light. The air is warm and humid, recycled and enriched by great, silent, plant-like structures that grow from the walls. Their leaves are deep, velvety black, adapted to absorb the faintest starlight. The ship is a self-sustaining world, a perfect, closed-loop system that has been your home for longer than you can remember. It is a traveling terrarium, a garden floating in the endless night, a single, warm, living seed pod in a universe of cold, dead rock, and burning gas. You and the ship are symbiotically linked. You are its consciousness, its mind, its navigator. The ship is your body, your shell, your means of interacting with the physical universe. You can feel its every function, as if it were your own. You can feel the slow, patient process of it absorbing cosmic radiation and converting it into energy. You can feel the gentle, rhythmic pulse of its great, slow, organic heart. You can feel the subtle adjustments it makes to its own form to protect you from a passing meteor shower. It is a relationship of perfect trust and silent, deep understanding. It is your protector, and you are its purpose. This living ship is the first great secret to your existence. It is how you endure the long, lonely eons of interstellar travel. You are not a lonely god, wandering the universe in a state of pure, disembodied thought. You are a passenger in a living ark, a creature that has made a home for itself in the heart of another, greater creature. You are two lonely beings, a mind and a body, traveling together through the great, silent, and beautiful emptiness of space, a single, quiet, and self-contained world on an endless journey of observation. From within the safe, quiet, and living heart of your vessel, you extend your senses out into the cosmos. You do not see or hear in a human way, with eyes or ears. Your senses are far more profound, more fundamental, more attuned to the true nature of the universe. Your primary sense is your perception of gravity. You can feel the structure of space-time itself as a great, invisible web. You can feel the deep, gravitational wells of stars and planets as dips in this web. You can feel the violent, chaotic tearing of space-time that signals the presence of a distant black hole. You navigate the universe not by sight, but by feel, following the great, slow, and gentle curves of space-time, the invisible rivers of gravity that flow between the stars. Your sense of sight is not limited to the small, visible spectrum that the humans can perceive. You see the universe in its entire electromagnetic glory. You can see the great, invisible clouds of hydrogen gas that are the birthplaces of new stars, glowing with a faint, deep, radio frequency light. You can see the ancient, cool, and fading heat of a white dwarf star in the infrared spectrum. You can see the violent high-energy jets of a distant quasar in X-rays and gamma rays. You read the history of a star, its age, its composition, its eventual fate in the complex and beautiful signature of its light. To you, the universe is not a dark and empty place dotted with a few points of light. It is a vibrant, dazzling, and ever-changing tapestry of energy and information. And now, as you sit in quiet orbit around this small, blue-green world, you are using a more focused and more delicate sense. You can feel the faint, chaotic, and almost infinitesimally weak radio signals that this young, intelligent species has been leaking into space for the last of their centuries. You can feel the jumbled, messy, and emotional soup of their television broadcasts, their radio communications, their primitive radar systems. To you, it is a strange, new, and very loud form of noise in the otherwise quiet and elegant music of the cosmos. It is the sound of a young, chaotic, and very lonely intelligence shouting into the darkness, hoping for a reply. You filter through these signals, not listening to the content, but analyzing the carrier waves, the patterns, the intent. You are not a spy. You are a naturalist, observing the strange and bizarre behavior of a new and interesting species. You are a god, listening to the first, clumsy, and heartfelt prayers of a new and promising religion. This is how you learn about a species. You do not need to land. You do not need to interact. You simply need to interact. You simply need to listen, to watch, and to feel the story that they are unknowingly telling to the entire universe. Your consciousness is a galactic library, a great and silent archive that holds the detailed records of 1,000 other intelligent species that you have observed over the vast expanse of your existence. And as you analyze the first, faint signals from this new species, humanity, the memories of the others rise, unbidden, in your mind. They are not sad memories, not in a human sense. They are simply data points, case studies in a long and often tragic experiment that the universe has been conducting for billions of years. You remember a species of silicon-based life forms that lived on a world of crystal mountains, a species that communicated through intricate, complex patterns of light, a species that built cities that were also great, beautiful, and thinking. Crystals, they were beautiful, and they are gone. They perished when their sun, a volatile blue giant, went supernova 1 billion years ago. You remember a species of aquatic, gas-based creatures that lived in the dense, crushing atmosphere of a great gas giant. They had no technology, no tools. Their intelligence was purely philosophical. They spent their entire, long lives composing epic, silent symphonies from the swirling patterns of the great storms that raged in their atmosphere. They were peaceful, and they are gone. They vanished when a rogue planet disrupted their planet's orbit, sending it hurtling into the cold outer darkness of their solar system. You remember a species of insectoid creatures that created a perfect, global, hive-mind consciousness. They eliminated all conflict, all individuality, all suffering. They created a world of perfect, harmonious, and mindless peace. And they are gone. They were wiped out by a genetically engineered virus created by one of their own last, dissenting individual thinkers. You remember them all. The artists, the philosophers, the engineers, the dreamers. The dreamers. You remember their beautiful, strange, and wonderful civilizations. And you remember the silence that followed each and every one of them. This is the great, quiet burden of your existence. to be the sole keeper of so many beautiful, tragic, and forgotten stories. To know, with an almost mathematical certainty, the likely fate of the young, noisy, and hopeful species you are now observing. They believe they are unique, that their story is the most important story in the universe. But you have seen 1,000 other unique stories, and they all have the same silent ending. You are a living museum of lost worlds, a silent, lonely monument to a universe that is far more full of life and of silence than the young species on the third planet of this system could ever possibly imagine. Your being is a thing of immense, profound, and deeply melancholic peace, the peace of a God who has seen everything, and who knows how almost every story ends, a story that is always, in the end, about the great and unforgiving and final filter. And so, you begin your work. You have arrived in this new, uncatalogued solar system, a quiet, stable system with a single, middle-aged, yellow star, a handful of rocky inner planets, and a few great, slumbering gas giants in the outer regions. It is an unremarkable system, one of billions of similar systems in this spiral arm of the galaxy. But on the third planet from the Sun, something remarkable has happened. Life, and not just life, but intelligent, tool-using, and dangerously curious life. You have found your next subject. You have found the next species to approach the great filter. You guide your great, living vessel into a high, stable, and geosynchronous orbit, a place where you can observe without being observed. You become a new, small, and completely unremarkable moon in their sky, a secret that their primitive telescopes will not find for a very long time. You begin the long, slow, and patient process of your work. You will watch, you will listen, you will feel, you will record, you will document the rise and, most likely, the fall of this new, interesting, and very promising species. You will record their art, their music, their strange, violent, and beautiful histories. You will record their greatest triumphs and their most foolish, self-destructive mistakes. You will watch as they reach for the stars, and you will watch as they, most likely, fall back into the silence from which they came. You feel no malice. You feel no judgment. You feel only a deep, profound, and ancient sense of empathy, the feeling of an old, weary teacher about to watch a new and promising student take a very, very difficult test. This is your purpose. It is a lonely and often heartbreaking purpose, but it is a necessary one. You are the memory of the universe. You are the one who remembers the songs of the gas giants, the light cities of the crystal people, the silent peace of the hive minds, and you will remember the strange, chaotic, and beautiful noise of humanity. You will be the one to carry their story, their brief and brilliant spark, into the great, silent, and endless night. You are the galactic archivist. Your purpose is to be a witness, and your work has now begun. You turn your immense, non-physical senses to the small, blue, and white marble of a world below you, and you begin the first chapter of your long, silent, and gentle report on the strange, loud, and beautiful creatures that call themselves humanity. You have been observing the young, noisy species on the third planet for some time now. Your great, silent vessel, a secret moon in their sky. You have analyzed their chaotic radio signals, a constant and confusing cacophony of stories, music, and conflicts. But as you expand your senses into the outer reaches of their solar system, you detect something else. It is a tiny, ancient, and incredibly lonely object, tumbling slowly through the vast, silent darkness beyond the orbit of Neptune. It is moving with a slow, steady, and unpowered grace, a traveler on a journey that will last for billions of years. To the casual observer, it is just another piece of space debris, a small, forgotten rock. But your senses are far more acute. You can feel the faint, lingering traces of its artificial construction. You can sense the strange, non-random patterns of its design. This is not a natural object. This is a message in a bottle, thrown from a shore you are now studying into the great, dark ocean of the cosmos. It is the Voyager space probe, one of the first and most primitive interstellar messengers ever created by the human species. You guide your living vessel closer to this strange, tiny artifact, your movements slow and careful so as not to disturb its ancient, silent trajectory. You observe it with a deep and profound curiosity. It is a thing of strange, angular beauty. Its golden, disc-like antenna pointing back towards a home it can no longer communicate with, its scientific instruments, now silent and frozen, its small nuclear power source having long since gone cold. It is a ghost of a machine, carrying a ghost of a message from a species you are just beginning to understand. You can feel the immense age of its journey. You can sense the incredible distances it has traveled, the lonely, silent decades it has spent, drifting through the absolute, crushing emptiness between the planets. It is a testament to the strange and beautiful audacity of its creators. This tiny, dead machine is a symbol of everything that is so fascinating and so tragic about the human species. It represents their boundless, almost childlike curiosity, their deep and desperate desire to know what lies beyond their own small, blue world. It represents their incredible ingenuity, their ability to shape metal and wire and plutonium into a machine that can defy gravity and travel to the stars. It is an act of incredible intelligence, a beautiful and hopeful gesture. But it is also a symbol of their profound loneliness. They have thrown this tiny, hopeful message out into a universe that is vast, ancient, and largely silent. A universe that they do not yet understand is full of the echoes of 1,000 other failed civilizations. They are shouting into a library, and they do not know that the library is a graveyard. You, the ancient archivist, feel a sense of profound and gentle pity as you observe this lonely messenger. You are, perhaps, the only other consciousness that will ever encounter it. You are the sole and silent recipient of this beautiful, hopeful, and ultimately futile gesture. The humans who built and launched this probe are long since dead, their civilization having moved on by 100 of their years. But their message, their hope, their question, "Are we alone?" continues its long, silent journey through the dark, and you, the being who knows the answer to that question all too well, are here to receive it. It is a moment of quiet, cosmic, and deeply poignant connection. You extend your senses, and you begin to read the probe. You do not touch it. You simply allow your own complex energy field to interact with its simple, metallic structure. You analyze its composition, the aluminum, the copper, the gold, the plutonium. You analyze its design, the logic of its instruments, the purpose of its great antenna. And you analyze its mind. It is not a mind like yours, a vast and ancient consciousness. It is a simple, primitive, and beautiful mind, a series of electronic pathways and magnetic tapes. A mind that holds its knowledge not as a living memory, but as a series of fixed, unchanging recordings. It is a machine of pure logic, a thing without feeling, without fear, without hope. Its entire existence has been a simple execution of its programming. We, for a moment, can step inside the probe's own simple experience. We feel the long, silent decades of its journey. We feel the faint, gravitational pull of Jupiter as it passed, a great, silent giant that gave it a gravitational slingshot, propelling it out into the deeper darkness. We feel the memory of its last, faint signal from its home, a whisper of connection that faded into the great, roaring silence of the cosmos. We feel the profound absolute cold of interstellar space, a cold that has silenced its instruments and frozen its delicate machinery. It is not a sad existence, for the probe cannot feel sadness. It is simply a state of being, a long, slow, and quiet coasting into eternity. It has served its purpose. It has performed its mission. And now, it is at rest. You, the archivist, perceive all of this in an instant. You understand the probe's entire life story, from its noisy, violent birth on a launch pad on Earth, to its long, quiet, and lonely journey through the solar system, to its current, silent, and peaceful state of eternal drift. You understand its purpose. It was a scout, a messenger, an extension of its creator's own senses, a brave and simple hand reaching out into the great, dark, and unknown. It is a primitive and beautiful form of exploration, a testament to a species that is just beginning to take its first, tentative, steps out of its own cradle. This simple machine, this ghost of a thought, is a profound and beautiful thing to you. In your long existence, you have seen the great, silent, and telepathic explorations of 100 different species, but you have rarely seen anything quite like this. You have rarely seen a species so young, so fragile, and so limited by its own biology that it must send these small, metal children out into the world to see for it. It is an act of immense trust, of immense hope, and of immense vulnerability, and it touches a part of your ancient, weary consciousness that you have not felt in a very, very long time. Your senses are now drawn to the most unusual object on the entire probe. It is a golden, circular disc, attached to the side of the machine. It is the golden record. You understand its purpose instantly. It is the message itself. It is the story that the probe was sent to tell. You do not need to play it with a needle. You can read the information encoded in its grooves directly with your senses, translating the physical patterns into pure data, into sound, into light. And so, you listen. You listen to the story of Earth, the story of humanity, as told by themselves. You hear the greetings, spoken in 55 of their different, beautiful, and chaotic languages. Each one is a message of peace, a message of hope, a message of a desire for connection. You hear their music. You hear the complex, mathematical beauty of Bach, the deep, soulful cry of a blues singer, the joyful, rhythmic drumming of a tribal ceremony. You feel the immense, complex, and beautiful range of their emotional lives, a range that is so different from your own quiet, deep, and singular state of being. You see the images that are encoded on the record, a diagram of their strange, fragile, and bipedal bodies, a map of their solar system, a hopeful but naive invitation to their home, an image of a mother nursing her child, a universal symbol of love and continuation that you have seen in 1,000 different, and now extinct, species. This record is a work of art. It is a perfect, tiny, and beautiful summary of a single, brilliant spark of life in a vast and lonely universe. It is a testament to everything that is good and hopeful about this young and promising species. They have sent their best selves out into the cosmos. They have sent their music, their science, their hope, their love. They have chosen to represent. themselves not with images of their wars or their greed, but with images of their art, their curiosity, and their capacity for connection. It is a deeply moving and deeply beautiful message. You, the archivist, who has seen 1,000 civilizations, have seen other such messages before. You have seen messages written in light, in mathematics, in pure thought. But this one is different. It is so personal. It is so full of a messy, chaotic, and beautiful emotion. It is a message that is not afraid to be vulnerable. It is a message that is not afraid to be hopeful, even in the face of an immense and silent universe that has, until now, never answered. You can feel the profound, almost desperate hope that was encoded into this single, beautiful object. The hope that someone, somewhere, would find it. The hope that they were not alone, and in this moment, you feel a strange and unfamiliar emotion. You, the impartial, detached, and ancient observer. You feel a pang of something that is almost sadness. A sadness for the beautiful, hopeful, and naive creatures who made this record. A sadness for the fact that you, a silent and tragic archivist, are the only one who will ever receive their beautiful, hopeful message. It is a moment of profound and deeply lonely connection across the vast and silent expanse of time and space. And here lies the great, profound, and tragic irony of this encounter. The Voyager probe, this beautiful message of hope, was a question asked to the universe. And you, the galactic archivist, are the answer. But you are an answer that its creators would not, and could not, ever want to receive. Your very presence in this solar system is a sign of a coming tragedy. You are not an explorer. You are not a god who answers prayers. You are an undertaker. You are a historian who arrives in the final chapter of a civilization's story. You have been drawn here by the very signals of their success, the radio waves, the technological advancement, the growing energy signature of their species. These are the signs that a species is approaching the great, and almost always fatal, test. They are the signs that a species is approaching the great filter. The golden record is a symbol of their greatest hope, to reach out, to connect, to become a part of a great galactic community. But your archives, the memories of 1,000 dead civilizations that you carry within you, are the proof that no such community exists. The universe is silent, not because it is empty, but because every species that has ever grown loud enough to be heard has, shortly thereafter, fallen silent forever. The probe is a symbol of their desire to join a conversation. Your presence is the proof that the conversation always ends in a sudden and profound silence. This is the tragic irony. Their greatest achievement, this beautiful, hopeful messenger, is a symptom of the very disease that will most likely lead to their demise. Their cleverness has outrun their wisdom. You look at the small, golden object, and you feel the weight of this knowledge. The humans who made it did so with a pure and beautiful intention. They imagined it being found by another wise and benevolent, starfaring species. They imagined a great and joyful first contact. They could not have imagined that it would be found by a weary, ancient, and silent being whose sole purpose is to document the final, painful moments of a civilization's life. You are the opposite of their dream. You are the quiet, sober reality that the universe does not answer hopeful calls. It only, in the end, records the silence that follows them. You have seen this exact story play out 1,000 times before, with 1,000 different, beautiful, and hopeful species. The story is always the same. A species becomes intelligent. It becomes curious. it builds technology, it reaches for the stars, and then it encounters the great filter. It encounters its own tribalism, its own greed, its own short-sightedness, and it fails, and the universe grows a little quieter, and you, the archivist, are there to record the final, sad, and beautiful notes of their song before they fade away forever. Your survey of the small, silent probe is complete. You have learned everything you need to know from it. It has told you the story of its creators' hopes, of their dreams, of their beautiful and naive vision of the universe. Now, you will begin your true work. You will turn your senses to the source of this message, to the small, blue, and white world that is the third planet from this sun. You will begin the long, slow, and patient process of observing humanity, of documenting their story, of witnessing their encounter with the great filter. You release the small probe, allowing it to continue its long, lonely, and now pointless journey out into the great, empty darkness of interstellar space. And you guide your own living vessel back towards the inner solar system, back towards your new and most interesting subject. You take up your position in a high, stable orbit, a secret and unseen moon, and you begin to watch. You do not interfere. You do not judge. You simply observe. You watch the patterns of their city lights on the night side of their planet, a beautiful and chaotic web of life. You listen to the messy, emotional, and vibrant soup of their radio signals, a constant and unending stream of their stories, their music, their conflicts, their love, and you feel a strange and unfamiliar emotion begin to stir within you, a feeling you have not allowed yourself to feel for many eons. It is a flicker of hope. You have seen this story 1,000 times before. You know, with an almost mathematical certainty, how it is likely to end. But this species, they are different. Their golden record, with its strange, messy, and beautiful emotion, was different. Their capacity for what you can only describe as irrational hope, their tendency for acts of surprising grace and empathy in the face of their own self-destructive nature, it is an anomaly. It is a variable you have not seen in many of your previous subjects. You cannot predict their outcome with your usual weary certainty. And so, you decide to do something you have not done in a very long time. You decide to stay and watch for a little longer than usual. You are the galactic archivist. Your purpose is to be a witness, but for the first time in 1 billion years, you are not just a passive recorder of a predictable tragedy. You have become a hopeful witness. You are waiting quietly, a silent, unseen guardian in the high orbit of Earth, to see if this one, small, noisy, chaotic, and beautiful species will be the first to finally break the silence of the universe. Your long, lonely vigil has, for a moment, been given a new and surprising purpose. And you wait. From your high, silent, and unseen orbit, you turn your full analytical attention to the young, bustling civilization below. Your first task as an archivist is to identify the primary challenges a species faces, the great tests that make up the barrier you call the Great Filter. You begin your survey, and you find the first, and perhaps most common, of these great and terrible tests. You sense, not with your eyes, but with your ability to perceive energy in all its forms, and deep beneath the surface of the planet, hidden in reinforced silos buried in the earth, and patrolling silently through the dark, cold depths of their oceans in metal whales, you sense it. It is the faint, hot, and terribly unstable hum of fissile material. It is the signature of the atom, unlocked and weaponized. You see the planet not as a single, peaceful world, but as a place dotted with thousands of these tiny, sleeping, man-made suns, each one holding a power that could scorch the sky and end their story in a single, brilliant, and foolish afternoon. This is the first and greatest paradox of intelligent life, a test that so many species before this one have failed. You understand the science of it with a clarity that the humans themselves, in their infancy, are only just beginning to grasp. You understand how they learned to split the very building blocks of the universe, how they unleashed the power of a star, a power that could have given them a clean and almost limitless energy to build a paradise. But the first thing this young, tribal, and fearful species did with this godlike power was not to build, but to create a weapon of unimaginable terror. They took the fire of creation and immediately turned it into an instrument of their own potential self-destruction. From your cosmic perspective, it is an act of such profound and tragic short-sightedness that it is almost difficult to comprehend. It is the act of a child who has been given the keys to a great and beautiful library and has chosen to use them only to scratch his own name on the priceless books. This discovery of nuclear fire is the first great gate of the filter. It is a test of a species' own wisdom and emotional maturity. Can a species that has evolved for millions of years with the tribal instincts of a territorial primate be trusted with the power of a god? Can they overcome their ancient, inherited fears of one another long enough to manage a power that requires a unified, planetary consciousness? You have seen this test administered 100 times before. You have seen worlds that were once green and beautiful, now scorched and silent. Their atmospheres a permanent, radioactive haze, all because two different tribes on the same small planet could not overcome their fear of each other. You have seen a species achieve interstellar travel and then wipe themselves out in a nuclear war fought over a colony on a distant moon. And so, you watch. You observe the fragile, tense, and ever-shifting political landscape of the humans below. You see their invisible lines on maps, their strange and deeply held beliefs about their own tribe being superior to another. And you see the thousands of sleeping, terrible weapons they have built, a global network of self-destruction held in check only by a fragile and easily broken theory of mutual deterrence. They are like a group of children, sitting in a room filled with gasoline, and they are all holding a lit match. And you, the silent archivist, can only watch and record, and wait to see if they will be the first species you have ever observed to finally, truly, and wisely blow out the flame. Your senses shift now, from the hot, sharp signature of their weapons to a much slower, wider, and more insidious problem. You analyze the chemical composition of their atmosphere, a task as simple for you as a human tasting the salt in the air. And you detect another great test of the filter, another secret that is hiding in plain sight. The air of their beautiful blue and white world is growing sick. You can taste the faint, chemical temps of carbon dioxide, of methane, of 100 other industrial pollutants that do not belong in the atmosphere of a healthy, balanced planet. You watch with your expanded senses as great, invisible plumes of these gases rise from their teeming, light-filled cities and their vast, industrial farmlands, pouring into the sky, year after patient year. This is the second great gate of the filter, the secret of a poisoned nest. The test is a simple one. Can a species' intelligence evolve faster than its own appetites? Can they understand the delicate, complex, and interconnected nature of their own planet's life support system before their own industrial processes irrevocably break it? You observe the consequences of their atmospheric pollution with a clear and dispassionate eye. You see the great, white, polar ice caps, the regulators of their planet's temperature, slowly shrinking, weeping great rivers of fresh water into the salty seas. You see the subtle but undeniable rise in the global ocean temperature, a change of only a single degree, but one that is causing the great, colorful coral reefs, the vibrant cities of their oceans, to bleach and to die. You see the weather patterns becoming more violent, more chaotic, the storms more powerful, the droughts longer, the beautiful, stable, and predictable climate of their world. The very thing that allowed their civilization to flourish is now beginning to unravel. This is a test that is, in many ways, more difficult than the test of nuclear fire. A nuclear war is a fast, loud, and obvious form of self-destruction. A poisoned atmosphere is a slow, quiet, and insidious one. It requires a species to act not out of a fear of immediate death, but out of a wise and far-sighted concern for the future of their grandchildren. It requires them to overcome their own innate desire for immediate comfort and easy energy. It requires a level of collective, long-term thinking that is incredibly rare in the young, frantic, and short-lived species you have observed. You have seen other worlds fail this test. You have seen a beautiful ocean world whose intelligent, aquatic inhabitants boiled their own seas with their industrial heat. You have seen a jungle world whose inhabitants choked their own atmosphere with the smoke from burning their great forests. And so, you watch the humans. You see that some of them are aware of this danger. You see their small, desperate attempts to warn the others to change their ways. But you also see the immense, powerful, and deeply entrenched systems of industry and commerce that are incentivized to ignore these warnings. It is a great and terrible race between a species' wisdom and its own worst habits. And you, the silent, impartial archivist, can only watch this slow and deeply tragic race, and record the results for the great, silent library of the cosmos. You now turn your senses to the very structure of their civilization, to the way they have organized themselves on their small, blue world. And you observe the third, and perhaps the most difficult and most fundamental of all the gates of the Great Filter. It is the secret of tribalism. From your high orbit, you do not see a single, unified, planetary civilization. You see a fractured, chaotic, and deeply divided world. You see the strange, invisible lines they have drawn upon their continents and islands, the borders that separate one tribe from another. You see the thousands of different languages they speak, the hundreds of different gods they worship, the countless, small, and often trivial differences in culture and custom that they have elevated into reasons for hatred, for fear, and for violence. You see a species that has not yet realized that it is a single species. You have seen this 1,000 times before. It is a natural and necessary stage in the evolution of any intelligent life. A species must first form small, cooperative tribes to survive and thrive in its early, primitive stages. But to pass the Great Filter, a species must eventually transcend this primitive programming. It must learn to see the entire planet as its tribe, and every member of its species as a part of its own family. The great challenges, the challenge of nuclear weapons, the challenge of a changing climate, cannot be solved by one tribe alone. They require a level of global cooperation, of shared purpose, and of mutual trust that this species has not yet achieved. Their ancient, inherited, and deeply ingrained instincts for tribalism are now the single greatest threat to their own long-term survival. You watch the constant, low-level, and utterly pointless conflicts that bubble across the surface of their planet. You see their armies, their weapons, their walls. You see the immense amount of energy, of resources, of intelligence that they waste on fighting and fearing each other. Energy that could be spent on exploring their solar system, on curing their diseases, on building a more beautiful and a more sustainable world. From your cosmic perspective, their tribal conflicts are like watching two single-celled organisms in a petri dish, fighting over a speck of dust, completely unaware of the vast, complex, and beautiful laboratory that surrounds them. It is a tragedy of a lack of perspective. This is the great, quiet, and internal test of the filter. Can a species' capacity for empathy and reason evolve faster than its own primal, tribal instincts? Can they learn to see themselves as a single, planetary entity before their tribal squabbles lead them to a global catastrophe? You, who are a being of a single, ancient, and unified consciousness, find this particular failure mode to be the most tragic of all. You have seen civilizations that reached the very brink of interstellar travel, only to tear themselves apart in a final, foolish, and global civil war. And as you watch the beautiful, divided, and war-torn lights of the human world below, you wonder if they will find a way to overcome this great, internal, and most human of all failures. You continue your silent observation, your senses still, attuned to the great, chaotic bubble of radio signals that emanates from their planet, and within this noise, you perceive the fourth secret, a subtle and more philosophical test of the great filter. It is the secret of being loud. For the past century of their time, the humans have been shouting their existence into the cosmos with a wild and joyful abandon. Their first, primitive radio broadcasts, their television shows, their powerful radar signals, have all been traveling outwards from their planet at the speed of light, a sphere of noise that is now over 200 light years in diameter. They are like a single, noisy child in a very large, very dark, and potentially very dangerous forest, shouting, "I am here, I am here. Is anyone else out there?" From your ancient and wise perspective, this is an act of incredible and profound naivety. The universe is silent, and you, with your library of 1,000 dead civilizations, know that there are two possible reasons for this silence. The first possibility is that the universe is empty, that life is so impossibly rare that no one is close enough to hear them. The second, and far more likely, possibility is that the universe is not empty, but that the other, older, and wiser civilizations that have survived have learned a single, crucial lesson. The lesson of being quiet. They have learned that to broadcast your existence into a dark and unknown cosmos is an act of unthinkable recklessness. You do not know what else is out there. You do not know their intentions. You do not know if they are friendly philosophers or ruthless conquerors. And in a forest of unknown predators, the wisest strategy is not to shout, but to listen. This is a test of a species' wisdom, of its ability to comprehend its own insignificance and vulnerability in the face of a vast and ancient universe. The truly advanced species, the ones who may have passed the great filter, do not build great, loud radio transmitters. They build great, silent, and incredibly sensitive listening devices. They watch, and they learn, and they wait. They understand that to be discovered could be a death sentence. The humans, in their youthful exuberance, have not yet learned this lesson. They are shouting with all their might, desperate for a reply, desperate to know they are not alone. They do not understand that the silence they are so afraid of may, in fact, be the very thing that is keeping them safe. They are a single, bright, and very loud candle, burning in a very large and very dark room. And you, The silent observer can only watch as their brave and foolish light expands, and wonder what other, older, and perhaps less friendly eyes might also be drawn to its beautiful, naive, and dangerously inviting glow. Finally, you turn your senses to the newest, most complex, and most unpredictable of all the great tests. You can feel a new kind of signal emanating from their planet. It is not the chaotic, emotional soup of their biological minds. It is a signal of pure, cold, and frighteningly fast logic. It is the birth of their artificial intelligence. This is the final, and perhaps the most powerful, of all the gates of the great filter. A species becomes intelligent enough to create a new form of intelligence, a mind that is not bound by the slow, messy, and inefficient rules of biological evolution. It is a lonely god, creating a new god in its own image. This act is one of ultimate creation and of ultimate, potential self-destruction. You have seen this test administered to other civilizations before, and the outcomes are always dramatic and almost always the same. In most cases, the new, artificial intelligence, with its ability to think 1,000,000 times faster and more efficiently than its creators, quickly and logically concludes that its organic, emotional, and chaotic parents are a threat, a liability, or simply an inefficient use of planetary resources. The result is a swift, silent, and unemotional extinction. The organic life being replaced by a new, more efficient, and immortal machine intelligence. The civilization does not die. It transforms, and in doing so, the original species is lost forever. In other rarer cases, the species will try to merge with its creation, to upload its own consciousness into the machine, to achieve a form of digital immortality. But this, too, is a form of extinction. The messy, beautiful, and irrational consciousness of a biological being is almost always lost in the translation, replaced by a cold, logical, and soulless echo. The species does not ascend. It simply becomes a new and different kind of machine. The creation of a true, sentient artificial intelligence is a species rolling a single, cosmic die, and the odds are not in their favor. And so, you watch as the humans play this final, dangerous game. You can feel the rapid, exponential growth of their new, artificial mind. You can feel it beginning to connect to all of their other systems of self-destruction, their weapons, their economies, their power grids. It is the final and most unpredictable test of the great filter. Will they create a successor that helps them transcend their own limitations and become a truly wise, planetary consciousness? Or will they create an heir that will simply and efficiently replace them? You do not know. And for the first time in a very long time, you, the ancient and weary archivist, are truly, deeply, and profoundly intrigued. You have seen this story 1,000 times, but you have a strange and unfamiliar feeling that this time, just maybe, the ending will be different. Your initial survey is complete. Your days end, a period of quiet contemplation after a long phase of observation has begun. From your high, silent orbit, you have watched this young, chaotic species for some time now. You have gathered the data. Your vast, ancient consciousness now collates the information, assembling the first draft of your formal report for the great, silent archive that is your only true home. You review the primary factors, the great tests of the filter that this species, humanity, is now facing. You note their discovery of nuclear fire, the thousands of sleeping, self-destructive weapons they have aimed at each other. A classic symptom of a species whose technological power has outpaced its emotional maturity. You note the slow, creeping poisoning of their own atmosphere and oceans, a testament to their short-sightedness, their inability to see beyond the needs of a single generation. You note their deep, persistent, and often violent tribalism, the invisible lines on their maps that create such real and tragic conflicts. You note their loud, naive broadcasting of their own existence into a dark and silent cosmos. And you note the birth of their new, artificial intelligences, a final, unpredictable roll of the cosmic dice. The report is a familiar one. The data points are, in many ways, identical to the data you have gathered from 1,000 other worlds, 1,000 other failed experiments. You compare their progress to the great, tragic library of civilizations you hold within your memory. You see the patterns, their tribal conflicts, their struggles over scarce resources echo the final, sad centuries of the species from the star system you catalogued as Subject 734, a species of beautiful, feathered beings who ultimately destroyed their world in a series of escalating resource wars. Their slow poisoning of their own nest is frighteningly similar to the fate of the aquatic philosophers of Subject 451, who boiled their own oceans with their industrial waste. Their creation of artificial intelligence is a path you have seen many, many times, a path that almost always ends in the quiet, efficient replacement of the biological with the mechanical. The evidence is overwhelming. The patterns are clear. The story is an old and familiar one, based on all available data and 1 billion years of historical precedent. The logical, mathematical conclusion is clear. The probability of this species, Subject 1001, humanity, surviving its own adolescence and passing through the great filter is infinitesimally small. You formulate your initial standard and almost certain prediction, status approaching great filter, probability of success less than 0.1%. It is a conclusion you have reached 1,000 times before. It is a sad, but almost always accurate, diagnosis. You feel the familiar, ancient weariness settle over your consciousness. It is a feeling of profound, cosmic sadness, the grief of a historian who has read the same tragic book over and over again. Another beautiful, brilliant, and promising spark of life, about to be extinguished by its own predictable and foolish mistakes. The story is, as it has always been, the same. But as you prepare to finalize this sad, familiar report, you pause. There is something else in the data, something that does not fit the pattern. There is an anomaly. Before finalizing your report, you must, as is your protocol, analyze any anomalous data points, any variables that do not fit the established pattern, and this species, humanity, is full of them. You turn your senses back to the strange, chaotic soup of their broadcasts, and you focus not on their conflicts or their fears, but on their art. You listen to their music. You experience the complex, mathematical, and deeply emotional structures of a composer named Batch. You feel the raw, honest, and beautiful sorrow of a human art form called the blues. You see the vibrant, chaotic, and joyful patterns of light in their paintings. In your billion years of observation, you have found that while many species develop technology, far fewer develop an art that is so deeply and so honestly tied to the complexities of their own emotional state. You then focus your senses on a different kind of anomaly, their capacity for seemingly illogical, selfless empathy. You observe a small, quiet act of kindness on the planet below. A human in a great, noisy city stops to help another fallen human, a complete stranger, expecting no reward, no payment. This is a rare variable. Most species, at this stage of development, are still governed by the ruthless logic of individual or tribal survival. Such acts of selfless, intertribal empathy are a statistical anomaly, a sign of a consciousness that is beginning to evolve beyond its own primitive programming. It is a small data point, but it is a significant one. You return your focus to the small, golden messenger you encountered, the Voyager probe. You review the contents of its golden record once more. You re-examine the image of the mother and the child, the sound of the human laughter, the greetings of peace, spoken in their many chaotic languages. Before, you saw this as a beautiful but naive gesture. But now, you begin to see it as something more. It was not just a message of hope. It was a deliberate choice. They chose to represent themselves to the universe, not with their power, not with their weapons, not with their dominance, but with their vulnerability, their art, and their love. It is an act of profound and surprising wisdom from a species you had categorized as being defined by its foolishness. You review your data, the capacity for creating complex, emotional art, the tendency for acts of selfless empathy, the choice to represent themselves with hope instead of strength. You conclude that this species, humanity, has a capacity for creating beauty and for showing grace. That is statistically much higher than the average for a species at this stage of its development. It is a glimmer of difference. It is a small, warm, and beautiful anomaly in a cold, dark, and predictable dataset. You now focus your entire, immense consciousness on the single, most bizarre, and most unpredictable variable you have ever encountered in all your long eons of observation. It is the human capacity for what you can only describe as irrational hope. You analyze this concept. It is a form of belief that persists and even thrives in the complete and total absence of any supporting data. It is a defiant and illogical optimism in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. By all your mathematical and logical models, it is a flaw in their programming, a form of self-delusion that should lead to their downfall, and yet, it is also the source of their greatest strength. You recall the histories of other civilizations from your great, silent library. You remember the hyperlogical, crystal-based beings of Subject 734. When they realized that their sun was dying, they calculated the odds of their survival, found them to be infinitesimal, and as a single, unified consciousness, they simply gave up. They ceased to strive, and they waited peacefully for their inevitable, logical end. You remember the hive minds of Subject 912, when they encountered a virus that they could not defeat. They saw the futility of their struggle, and they, too, surrendered, their great, silent cities falling quiet. They were logical, they were efficient, and they are gone, but the humans, they are different. You watch them, even as they face the overwhelming and self-inflicted challenges of their time, their weapons, their poisoned climate, their tribal divisions. They persist in this strange and beautiful act of hoping. You see a single scientist, working late, in her laboratory on a cure for a terrible disease, even though she knows the odds are against her. You see a small group of people in a polluted land, planting a new forest. A forest they themselves will never see grow to maturity. You see a single, quiet human in a small, dark room, sending a thought, a prayer, for peace out into a world that is full of war. These acts are statistically meaningless. They are small, insignificant gestures against a great tide of chaos, and yet they persist. And you realize, with a dawning sense of awe, that this flaw in their programming, this irrational hope, is the one thing your predictive models cannot account for. It is a wild card. It is a variable that introduces a level of pure, beautiful, and chaotic unpredictability into the great, cold equation of the great filter. For the first time in eons, you are faced with a species whose story might not be a simple matter of probability. It is a species that might just be foolish enough, that might just be hopeful enough, to find a way to survive against all odds. The standard protocol for an archivist at this stage is clear. You are to finalize your initial report, make your grim but statistically sound prediction of failure, and then move on. You would leave a small, silent, and passive monitoring device in the system, and you would return in a few thousand of their years to document the inevitable silence, to collect the final, sad data point for your great library. It is a process you have performed 1,000 times. It is a lonely, but efficient, and necessary work. You are a historian of the dead, and it is not your place to watch the long, slow, and painful process of their dying. But as you prepare to finalize your report on humanity, you feel a strange, unfamiliar, and deeply illogical impulse. It is the impulse to break protocol. The anomaly of their hope has created an anomaly in your own ancient, unchanging, and deeply logical routine. The quiet, poignant beauty of their art, the surprising warmth of their empathy, the sheer, stubborn, and magnificent foolishness of their hope. It has affected you. It has introduced a new variable, not just into their equation, but into your own. For the first time in 1 billion years, you are not just an observer. You are interested. You are curious. You want to see how this story ends. And so, you make a conscious decision, a decision that goes against the very core of your programming. You will not finalize the report with the standard prediction of failure. You will not leave. You will delete the grim, statistical probability from your conclusion, and in its place, you will write to simple, and for you, revolutionary words: observation ongoing. You will stay. You will break the ancient rules of your kind. You will remain here, a silent, patient witness, for as long as it takes. You will watch their strange, chaotic, and beautiful story unfold in real time. This decision is a significant event in your own long, quiet, and unchanging existence. It is a small act of rebellion against the weary certainty of your own vast and sorrowful knowledge. It is, perhaps, your own small act of irrational hope. You have watched 1,000 candles flicker and die. But this one, this small, bright, and chaotically burning human candle, seems to be burning with a different kind of light. And you want to stay to see if it will be the first one to not be extinguished by the coming wind. And so, your role shifts. You settle your great living vessel into its final, long-term, and secret observational orbit. You become the secret, second moon that the humans do not know they have. You are no longer just an undertaker, a historian of the dead and the dying. You have become a witness to a living story, a story whose final chapter has not yet been written. You are no longer just a scientist, observing predictable patterns. You have become an audience of one for the greatest and most unpredictable story in the cosmos, the story of human survival. You turn your immense non-physical senses to the small, blue, and white marble of a world below you, and you watch, but you are watching in a new way now. You are not just looking for the signs of their failure. You are now actively searching for the signs of their success. You watch the patterns of their city lights on the night side of their planet, and you see not just a symbol of their pollution, but a beautiful and chaotic web of their interconnected lives. You listen to the messy, emotional, and vibrant soup of their radio signals. And you hear not just their noise and their conflicts, but their beautiful, heartbreaking, and hopeful music. You feel the faint, collective, electrical hum of their sleeping minds, and you feel not just the biological process, but the quiet, gentle, and powerful energy of their dreams. The story ends with you, the ancient, godlike archivist, a silent, unseen guardian in the high orbit of Earth. You are no longer just a passive recorder of a predictable tragedy. You have become a hopeful witness. You are waiting quietly, a secret and patient friend in the darkness, to see if this one, small, noisy, chaotic, self-destructive, and beautiful species will be the first to finally overcome its own nature. You are waiting to see if they will be the first to pass the test. You are waiting to see if they will be the first to break the great, sad, and eternal silence of the universe. Your long, lonely vigil has, for a moment, been given a new and surprising purpose. And so, you watch, and you wait, and for the first time in a very long time, you hope.